Alright, so here we go. Pathfinder Adventures here. Just got a couple things left on the Gold Pathy before I take it out to get it emissioned. A couple safety aspects that I definitely wanted to clear up before attempting to even drive out on public roads. The bushings on the steering rack are both pretty much eaten away, and I got the new hubs, the unlocking hubs for this one now as well. So we'll get to it. So these are where the rack bushing should be. You can see I pressure washed this last year. You can see this one is intact, but I'm actually going to go in and replace this one as well. Basically the only things that we really need to, you can see half of this one's still there. Really the only things I'm going to have to do are I'm taking off the wheels just because I need to do a brake inspection as well. But we'll probably end up taking this bolt off here that removes the steering wheel linkage from the rack itself. I'm actually not going to disconnect any lines because most of the lines, as you can see, have, they're rubber, so that there's a little bit of movement in there. I will have to probably take this off because this is fixed with this. So this is basically a cooling line, anti-vibration, got a sensor right there as well, pressure sensor. And then if I'm really feeling up to it, I have new end bellows for this power steering unit. I did pressure wash this really good, like I said, because I wanted to see if it was leaking or not. It's like my tranny lanes are probably leaking a bit, so I'll have to tighten those down. But yeah, we got to do a brake inspection, and then I'm going to attempt to do those hubs with the wheels off on this particular one. So the first thing that we do to make sure that it doesn't roll, even though probably the e-brake's on and it's in park, is to chock the wheels front and back so it doesn't roll back and forth. This is for safety reasons, obviously. And then we'll find my jack and we'll start jacking it up. So the next step, we're going to jack up the front end. We'll grab the jack. Got the safety chocks in. Good place to lift this up is right underneath the rack. It's a nice solid frame piece that hooks the suspension to the frame. Set this up. I don't necessarily want the wheels to hang, so I might be putting the jack stands on the lower control arms so that I don't have that extra slack when I take the rack off. Jack stands here. Make sure they're set about even. They don't have to be necessarily. You want it to clear the wheel when it's set back down, because you don't want to have to fight against the wheel. You can also put those on the frame if you really don't feel safe. I've got enough experience that, and this is where the experience comes in. Ready? Do a shake test. Back and forth, side to side. You could hear the one on the right adjusted a little bit. But that's pretty much it. So the next plan is to cut the air compressor going for my half inch. Take the wheels off. Finally that thing turns off. Come back on here. This one I'm using is a 21. All depends if yours are aftermarket or OE. You got a nice little corner to put that in. Probably gonna need the airline, at least for some of those bolts. This one's really lit as well. Secondary looks like it's about 6:30 seconds. The other one on the other side looked like it was about 4, so like I say, we're only going to do both of these, get these done. You do have to remove the hub assembly, well, you have to remove that to remove the circlip inside to be able to spin. So you do have to take that off to spin the inner ring off. Unlock it, it's got a couple screws locking it up. So, like I say, that'll be done in a different video, but we'll do it at the same time as we're doing this. So, we're confident that's not going to fall on me. And we've got a little more slack on this side than the other side, so we'll figure out what that size is and we'll get right back to it. Alright, this music is not being played by me, it's being played by the pool across the street. Oh, looky. Oh, okay, so this one is a 12. And then these ones over here are a 10. And then either of these fit. There's a 22 or a 7/8. So this is the 7/8, goes on. It does have a little bit of play in it. The 22, however, slip it on, there's no play in it at all. So you want to go with the 22, obviously. And then of course I've got a reducer. I am going to use the impact to take it off. It'll just be faster that way. But I'm not going to use it to put it back on. I'll use my small electric ones. And then the one up, steering linkage here, up here. The steering wheel is semi-straight. And you don't want to take this one off using anything but basically a 3/8 ratchet. And again, don't put the 10 on the 12. That's this one here. Yeah, if you need an extension, you can always use an extension as well. But I am going to grab an extension really quick. Probably 3 to 6 inches would be fine. Wherever I've got the quickest I can get here, it's the 3. I was going to play any music, could be something different. So this is 3. And these will usually only go back in one direction, but such is not the case with these older models. It's not really a thing. You want a screwdriver to kind of pry that in there, and it'll let itself go. I'm not going to disconnect anything else. I just want that to not put any pressure on anything up there. Put that in a safe spot. And then we'll get to these here. Grab the 10 with the 1/2 inch 3/8 adapter. I'm gonna take these out. Make sure it's the right way because you don't want to kill it. This will break them instantly. Those in a safe spot. And then the rest of these are gonna have to be done, unless you want to remove all your lines. It's gonna have to be done by hand. Usually a breaker bar, and then ratchet. So obviously the hard ones to get to are the tops. This one's going to be hard. I might actually end up taking this line off. It's part of this connection here, and then this one will be somewhat out of the way here. And you can see my nut sensor up there. They're relocated. So just to kind of take care of anything, I'm gonna disconnect this pressure sensor so I'm not breaking it accidentally on purpose. Kind of have it so that doesn't break this piece off, obviously. Put this one on. And this is like right by the power steering line, so that's the 6-inch extension. I'm going to use these smaller ones. This one's like a 2-inch and then about a 1-inch. Okay, on my 3 for some odd reason. And that actually looks like it'll clear most everything. And then I've got a breaker bar here. Like I say, these uppers are going to be the ones that are a bigger pain. You're going to have to I don't want to lay on that because that's really uncomfortable. And that's actually wasn't as tight as I thought it was going to be. I thought I was going to have to kick it. And then we'll try this one here. Like I say, I might have to take off a line. I'll pop this on first. See if it'll go on. Yeah, it looks like I'm going to have to take that Banjo Bolt off, and then we'll have to lead out the system, which is a pain in the rear, but what are you going to do? We'll take that one off. Well, we'll loosen these lower ones. Both of them. And you'll want to, I can pretty much feel torque, but you'll want to torque yours down to whatever the specs are, and I can look those up and give them to us in the video. That's not going to really have a torque, just don't tighten it so tight that it snaps, and same with this upper. Like I say, I'm going to have to take that upper line off, and that actually comes off with this. So once I get that one off, of course I'm going to catch all the fluid, or as much as I can, as long as it doesn't hit the frame and go somewhere else. And then we'll get to that point. Give me just a sec, I'll be right back. And you'll see this line up here. It does have copper washers on it, which chances are you don't want to reuse copper washers. That's kind of a rule of thumb. Any vehicle, you don't want to reuse the copper washers, because once they squish, then so you'll want to have copper washers, or have a hardware store close to you that has copper washers that will fit your Banjo Bolt. This one, since my oil filter is up in the way, I'm actually going to use a box-ended wrench to loosen that up. So and then I've got a catch pin underneath here. So that's looking 13 or 14. Getting a little more in deep depth than I wanted to, but it kind of needs to be done. So. See if it's a 13. If it's a 13, I'll be happy. And it's not, it's probably a 15. So I've got me a 14, 6-point. That's it right there, the 14 is. So, problem with this is there's not a whole lot of room for error. So I'm gonna actually I might actually end up taking that oil filter off. Yeah, that's pretty on there. So, unless you have a longer 14, which I probably do. I've got so many tools. A little longer, but not much longer. So sometimes you have to improvise. Well, that one fits nice and tight. Probably end up just bringing a mallet in and tapping that so that I can fit it on here a different way too. And that oil filter's just in the way. So if I take the oil filter off, what I'll just do right now, I don't usually crank these on too tight. Okay, well, this one's tight. Lucky for me, I used to be a loop jack too, so all sorts of toys. That's a brand new oil filter. I kind of don't want to kill it already, but there's not enough room for this either, is there? Nope. So, once I get it off, we'll go back to it. Alright, so I have dented this oil filter. Trying to take it off with the jaws were the only things that would fit up there. So I'll probably have to replace it. This is like a $12 Bosch oil filter too. Ouch, my back. Pure later. Oh, excuse me, pure later. And the oil looks terrible, even though it's less than 100 miles old. It was really. I'll assess it and see if I can use this again, but chances are I probably can't. And if there's any creases in the metal, the oil pressure can rupture those creases and basically make it so it's terrible to try and take off. So that was a 14, right? So that's a 14, and 12. Alrighty, so I'm gonna grab a 14. I'll be right back. Alright, so that oil's still dripping away. Got me a 14 with a ratchet on it, and these are an interesting 6-point, so it's got a nice wide area to grab. And there it is. That's the first chunk. Usually have to take it out more than that, but take it out until it starts turning. Of course, I've got these box ends will turn it now. There you go. And first was oil, now power steering. And it looks like it needs a flush anyway, so I'm gonna child was definitely neglected and abused. So you can help it along, just pushing on the finger and kind of unscrewing that bolt at the same time. There's one of the copper washers, and you can see that's what a Banjo Bolt looks like. It's got holes in there and holes in the end, and that copper washers that have to be replaced. Have to be. I'm gonna really exclamation point, exclamation point. You really want to replace those, because if you don't, you're probably gonna end up with a leak. And you'd be like, oh, what leak? Why is it leaking? So, got a wire that's kind of pulling on this up here. So, in theory, I can take this whole, more or less, thing out. And you'll want to clean this all off before you obviously put the new bushing back up, because any types of oil will definitely decrease the lifespan of that. So remember why we were taking that off to begin with. It's because we needed to get to that upper bolt. And I could just let this bleed off. I'm actually going to go in and we'll loosen this one out too. And that one wasn't that tight. Of course, you know there's no pressure on these since that bushing is pretty much gone. Enough with that. For the breaker bar, put a 3-inch extension on this bad boy and pop a ratchet on it, and should be able to just unbolt it. Now, if you had like a universal and an extension, you could definitely use up an impact gun. That's the worst bolt right there. And I'm just going to put these, in my bin here so that the transmission fluid, i.e. power steering fluid, same pretty much difference, can wash off the grease and whatnot. So, and then the rest of them, I can show you if you really want to. Let's see here. View here. This one, just pop. See that power steering line's in the way, so I'm going to use the 2-inch. And you don't really want to do these one at a time, because one will hold the other. So, I'm flinging transmission fluid everywhere. That's funny. And then once I'm done, I will pressure wash this again. But there's one. These are shaped differently. So obviously this is the square looking one. Square looking. And then the other one is the round one. So I'm gonna cut that. And with this out of the way, you can, put it at any angle, almost any angle. The line will be willing to go, so it's kind of out of the way of what's connecting. So I'm just wipe this off so it's not flinging everything everywhere. And like I say, it's better to do these in pairs if you plan on doing it in them all. I was going to replace the rack unit itself because I thought it was leaking, but I ended up putting type F fluid. The racing formula from Redline is a type F. They actually have a specialized type F now, but before they did, it was just called racing ATF, and that actually sealed up the green Pathfinder's system. So we'll just use that 2-inch. Just leave that down there while it's still draining. Make sure that switch isn't in the way like it is. And I'm not disconnecting the tie rod ends. I do have replacements. That could be in a different video, but I'm not going to do that right now because you can still manipulate this thing around. It'll still move once. That's a bad idea. Maybe I'll just keep this down here. See if I got this clip off, I could take that off and that would just move just fine. So, but this one's pretty much off. There's that one. See, that one's round. So driver side looks like a D. Driver, passenger side, just not the D. And this will come off. See how that just comes right off? This other side will too. Even if it's connected, it'll come off just enough to where I can put a new bushing on. If you really want to, you can disconnect the rest of this stuff and pull it down. I can do that really quick too. So now we've gotten to the point where we can take these off. You can see how rubbery and icky these are. This is the new one for the driver's side. Obviously, it's a D. And then this one's obviously the passenger side. It's a little bit bigger. But you'll want to clean it again. I've got some brake clean that we'll spray it off with so that it doesn't get all nasty underneath. This one's going to be easy because it just kind of lifts off and you can pull it out. Oh, it's pretty grody. The side I'm only really going to clean is the driver's side because this just has crap on it. It's not that big of a deal. This doesn't really go in any specific way other than the reverse of what you just took it off with. So I tend to put the split part kind of in the middle of where it connects, just so that there's not really a right or a wrong way. I'm sure the manufacturer has specific ways of how they put it in. You can see how rubbery this one is. It's obviously an original. You can see where the pinch lines were. It's a pinch line and a pinch line, and it was almost in the middle of where that was. Because see, that's flat here, and then there's kind of a ridge here where the ridge was in the middle, so it doesn't move back and forth. And that will be like that. There's no up and down necessarily. Oh yeah, there is an up. There's an arrow on this one, letting us know that that's up, obviously. Because why would they point down? I'm just going to clean this up kind of by hand. Like I say, this one's pretty clean. It doesn't really have any oil or grime on it. Just road crap. And then this other one, obviously, you might need a pry bar. I'm actually going to remove it out of this power steering coupler here. The steering wheel's fairly straight. I still am going to need an alignment after I'm done. Just don't figure that your alignment's going to be correct after this. Grab my ginormous screwdriver here to try and kind of pry that apart. If the screwdriver doesn't work, you can always try using a small pry bar. But this is my big ginormous pry bar here. And again, I'm getting up in here. Try and pry that apart. You can always take this off, and it'll remove it off of that. But you want to be careful not to lose any parts. Can also actually take it off of this side. This side's shorter. But could take it off of this side as well. It probably should be the same size. Close to it. Let's see here. It's better to do this when it's all connected so nothing is shifting. But it's just enough that I did have to turn the wheel, so we'll eye it to get it as close to center as possible before reconnecting everything. This one's pretty long. Gonna keep those two together, and then of course we'll use the screwdriver to pry it off of this plane here. I'm gonna probably end up doing is prying this out a little bit with a pry bar. I've got a pry bar to do that. This is actually up far enough to take out this now. I didn't have to move it a ton. And there's that one. That's what's left of it. I mean, if you look at the original side by side, there you go. See why I say it wasn't safe for me to drive it. That was terrible. So, it's wet. We will grab the spray really quick. It's still dripping, obviously, and it's still going to drip. We're not going to get it perfect unless you wait overnight and clean it. And then clean it while you're waiting overnight. It's kind of a big drag and a big waste of time. In fact, any mechanic shop, even if they're reputable, will not wait till this is stopped. Stop doing what it's doing. See how nice and clean that's getting. This is just brake clean. It's VOC approved for California, even though I'm not there. And I'm going to spray the top. Just kind of get it. This stuff will liquefy most oils. But I mean, you're talking $3 or $4 a can. So, and it air dries pretty quick. So, just go in and kind of, and it's safe for most rubbers. So, this one, I'm going to actually feed it in through the top so that it doesn't have to. And then break it out just enough. Doesn't like me today, apparently. There's that. And I'm going to have to pry that up because it's kind of right there. It gets stuck against this piece here. Once I get a pry bar, I can pry that up and it should slip around it no problem. Just some of the challenges there are when you've got frame parts so close by and you're not taking complete units out. I mean, I could take this out completely. It'd be a pain, but just do it just enough. Just watch it shift. Watch the shift. Hopefully it doesn't shift too much over to the side. I'm just going to do it this way. This one's not completely done, but it allows for some pinching to go on. And obviously I'm gonna have to move it over a little bit. Just like that. Perfect. So that'll be good for that one. Really, I didn't have to take any of that steering stuff off. But I'm going to clean up the bolts really quick and clean up this mount, and then we'll get it back together. Show you how to do that really quick. Alright, so we get this one nice and cleaned up. Used a couple of these blue rags. They're great for cleaning stuff up, especially when they're used. This one I haven't cleaned it as much, but again, I'm going to probably end up pressure washing this. Here at home, I've got a pressure washer. Just wipe that off. It's actually pretty easy. So remember, arrows face up. Arrow faces up. Sorry, arrow. Arrow faces up. Passenger side, arrow faces up. So I'm gonna put this back up in. Put the remount it to the frame here. Again, we gotta manipulate and play with these mounts a little bit. And so this one, of course, it being newer, is going to be a little bit more frustrating because you just can't put these all the way in. You gotta kind of put them in part way, and they don't really matter which ones are which. You just gotta make sure that they line up. And this would be the same as if you're doing a rack as well. A little bit of space there. You try and put them in as even as possible. This one, obviously, put that in there. Make sure that arrow's facing up again. And kind of move things around where you can access them. Not sure why that one's not going in. I'm not going to force it. This one goes right in. Could be a bolt alignment problem here. Look at it, make sure that there's no cross threads going on here. Just have to play with it a little bit. See, so I adjusted this out, and now it's able to thread in just fine by hand. You don't want to force any of these with, you know, with your ratchet or anything, because you can cross thread these pretty easily. They're metric. Well, they're supposed to be heavy duty. They're still metric. So, put this one in. I don't need the pry bar anymore either. Try and move this around as much as you can, or however you need to do it. Make sure that you're going the right way with the bolt clockwise. Obviously this one, I don't need that inch because I'm getting right up there next to the tranny lines. So take this small one off. put them on until I think they're pretty tight, and then we'll torque it down correctly, obviously, for obvious reasons. Now you're supposed to be able to get the polyurethane of these bushings. I didn't because they weren't necessarily for Pathfinder, and I really didn't want to take the chance and spend 25 bucks. These were 10 bucks for the pair. Didn't want to chance it just in case they didn't fit, obviously. Okay, just gonna inspect the oil filter really quick, see if there's any kinks. Just looks like some of the paint came off. It's not that bad. I'm actually going to reuse this one, so I'm just gonna wipe it off a little bit, and I'll put it in a spot where it won't get crap into it. So we'll put it down, facing down, because we still have to put this power steering line back in, right? So I've got Harbor Freight makes these. They typically be 5 to 10 bucks, I think. It's been a while since I bought this one. This one's brand new, lucky for me. So there's some gaskets that I use a lot of, and the other ones just I get a collection of them because they're not as popular. So you want to match that copper up as good as possible to the let's do it this way. So it's got to fit around this. Be as close as possible. If they don't fit exactly, I've got an Ace Hardware down the street that I can probably go to. That actually is a pretty good fit. Amazingly enough, that's actually the most popular gasket. So I'm glad I haven't had a new package. Most oil plugs take that. European cars take that that copper gasket. So if you want to match it up, the outside diameters, it's a little bit thicker, but that's obviously because it hasn't been squished yet. Yeah, it's actually a pretty good match overall. So I'm gonna let this truck pass. Alright, so hopefully I've brought a light in. Hopefully you can see that. I actually have to bring that down and it's just right up here. Kind of hard to see, but hopefully in 720 you can see it. Okay, so what I'll want to do here is I'm gonna want this kind of to be free moving. I don't want to attach it to the frame yet, but I do want to clean this off a little bit just so that there's no crap gets into the power steering system kind of thing. And what you do is I just lay it there for a minute. Once I get ready, feed my bolt in, my Banjo Bolt. I want to make sure that it goes through all the way. And this is the hard part. Just getting that other gasket on there without pushing the bolt out and without losing it. It's kind of a catch-22. Takes practice. I've got, and then you want it to feed in and then it'll straighten itself out, kind of thing, hopefully. And you always want to hand feed it. Always, always, always. Never put this on with a tool. Especially banjo bolts. Banjo bolts are not cheap. They're specially made, and so once that's in place, then I'm actually going to put these other two bolts into this in here, so that it all lines up nice and pretty. And again, I'm not going to put these in with the impact like I took them out. I will grab my 3/8 with a 10mm on it. With a 1/4 inch drive. Put it on about the medium setting. And drive it in here. That one seemed like it was cross-threaded, but it wasn't enough to actually really cross-thread it. So once that's all aligned, I can come back up here. Hopefully you can see this. It's right here. I'm gonna take the, you only want to have to do this once. If you end up having to do it more, you're gonna need new gaskets. First time is the best time. And my hand's gonna be in the way because I do not have the right size on it. Surprise, surprise. We're going to start putting it in with this one first. Anyway. Remember, you have no power steering, so don't start up the car without that power steering fluid. So I can tighten it to that point, obviously, and then we need the other. Make sure that this is the correct one, which it is. These have a little bit of leeway in them because they can be that's as tight as I'm going to go because it feels like it's going to about slip. So that should be good. I'm going to clean this off again. Pretty much out. It's okay though. So now that that's in, this is bolted down. We want to obviously freak everybody out. Drop like an elevator. I'm going to take this, turn that light off. I feel confident enough that this bolt is tight enough. In fact, all the bolts are tight enough in my opinion. If you want to torque them down, you can. But I'm not going to. Because I can't really pull it much more than that. So remember to hook this back in. Sometimes you have to push the safety on it to get it to slide on. It's really icky down here still. You see my hands? And again, I'll pressure wash this on a later date. See, now I feel confident enough that I won't have any problem steering. And even though these bushings fit, this one didn't quite fit, in my opinion, so they may not be OE type, even though they are advertised as OE. Now what we want to do is we want to attach these last two bolts on the steering. And since we really didn't manipulate the steering much, you don't really have to readjust these at all, which is really easy. The greasy one goes in the greasy spot, and the clean one goes in the clean spot, or the rusty spot. You want to hand tighten them as much as you possibly can. And you can go in with your tools and then tighten them down. Adjust that if you need to. Readjust that. This one's tight. And that is it. So now the bushings are redone. We got new bushings on both sides, and we got new copper gaskets on that Banjo Bolt. So the next thing that I'll be working on is the hubs. So we'll see you in the next video.